professional and academic bodies. We welcome you, ma'am, in today's FTV to cover the topic for legal research and its major stages. Ma'am, over to you, please.
Thank you, Afrin. Thank you so much. First of all, I would congratulate the Dean of Sardar Patel Institute of Law, Professor Vaibhav Goel, for conducting and organizing this FDP on such an issue, which is really very important in the law field as well as to the researchers. As told by you that earlier two previous speakers who were eminent in their field, they have taken the what is research and at the same time broadly the literature review. So today, not focusing on those points, I'll be focusing on the legal research with its major legal stages as to what are different steps through which one can go ahead to complete the research work. So when we talk about the research, it is something like going round and round in a circle to find the gaps and missing areas, which an earlier researcher on that area has either left or missed out. It is something like a journey from the darkness to the light, we can say. Research, when you go through the spelling, you will find that re is the prefix of that search, which is having a special meaning. That is, re means repeatedly you do something, you do research. Now, when we go for the legal research, broadly, it's a relationship between the governance and the governed that works in the society and for the social values. Because when you see law, LAW law or LAWS law, then it includes land, air, water, and space. And the part of the society is what law has its jurisdiction. And so law never operates in a vacuum. It operates in a complex social setting. It reflects the social attitudes as well as it also regulates the behavior of the society. But as we know that the society is not static, social values and social attitudes that keeps on changing every time. So the law has also to change with the changing situations. And for that we see that if the law would remain static, then it would not provide justice. So the dynamism of that law makes it very important for the research purpose. And this dynamism of law, that is to cope with the changing social values, social attitudes, it becomes a living law that has to run with the society. For that, research is very important in the law field also. And again, you see that in the era of scientific and technological developments, new complex human relationships are being seen, which add to various complexities, and that also needs to be regulated. Because once upon a time, you must be not aware about what is cyber crime, but now we are going for that also. Artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, these are all the part of legal research also. So in such situations, legal research becomes necessary to deal with the upcoming situation. And basically, legal research is done to ascertain the law on a given topic or subject. And it is done for the purpose of highlighting the ambiguities, the vaguenesses, and some other inbuilt weaknesses of the law. And another purpose of the legal research, we can say, is it is just to critically examine the legal provisions, the principles, the doctrines in a view so that one can see the consistency and the stability of the law. And by doing this, one can also underline the policies which are there. It is also done to undertake the social audit of the law, wherein one can come up with the reasons of the existing law and as to why and how it is made, and to see that what is the pre-legislative forces when the law was enacted, what was those situations in which the law has been made, and also to see the application of that law, the implementation of that law, because you must be aware that there are various laws which have been enacted but on the implementation point, these are very, very weak laws. So one of the point for the research is also that the application of that law, the implementation of the law, that is, we can say the post-legislative impacts. So basically, legal research is for the pre-legislative forces and the post-legislative impact. And then one of the most important thing is that just to make the suggestions for the improvement and for the development of the law. So you all are aware that India is a democratic nation and we are a welfare and democratic state that needs the socio-economic transformation for the development of the just social order. And that just social order can be said to be based on the equality and socio-economic justice. And for that social reforms and economic progress through legislation and legal authority is very much important, and that is the requirement of that. And for this, our constitution, the supreme law of the land that allows the states to use the legislative powers to bring about a change in the socio-economic transformation, to bring a just social order. And for that, you see, law acts as an agent for such socio-economic transformation. And with this power of the state to legislate, there emerges some questions too, like why the law is made, what are the causes, what are the reasons, what are the objectives that activated that legislation, whether the law has been passed directly or there are certain cross currents, counter currents which oppose that legislation, what are the grounds of that opposition, and how the law has been adopted. So all these things would be seen in the effect of the implementation of that law, that is, the law is successful or unsuccessful as a social legislation. I'm just trying to give you those things on which the researches are being conducted in legal field. So whether the law is fully implemented or partially implemented, if partially implemented, then why? What corrective measures need to be made or to take it make more effective? Does it merely need some modifications, or it could be replaced totally by a new institute? So we find that legal research is the process of identifying and retrieving the information that are necessary to support the legal decision making. It also includes in each step of a course of action as to how it has to go about. And that begins with the analysis of the facts of a problem, and it concludes with the application and communication of the results of the research. So legal research therefore takes into its ambit both doctrinal research and non-doctrinal research, or sometimes this non-doctrinal research is also known as the empirical research. So doctrinal research, which is also known as a research in theory or research in black letters of law, where you use the library, where you use the documents. So this doctrinal research is into the legal rules, principles, doctrines and concepts, or it involves a rigorous systematic exposition, analysis, and critical evaluation of the legal rules or the legal principles, doctrines which are there, and their interrelationship. Relationship between whom? As I told you, relationship between the governed and the governance. Because law is made for whom? Law is made for the society. So we see the application of that law, implementation of that law in this systematic exposition with its interrelationship. And on the other hand, the other type of the research, that is the empirical research or known as the non-doctrinal research, is the research about law. It is not the research in law, it is research about the law or the socio-legal research. It just assesses the impact of the law, and it reveals the gap between the legal idealism and the social reality. Because if you see that this is the law and various ideals have been there, the part of that particular act, how many are going to accept and to follow and to obey that law? That depends on that social reality. So this empirical research is a method through which the researcher can study the law that is about the law or a social legal research. So in that, perceiving the idea of law that is as a social phenomena, researcher explores the social, political, economic, cultural, various dimensions or its implications of the law. Because law is something which exists everywhere, as I told you, land, air, and water, space, everywhere. So it is having its roots and connections with the other streams also. That's why it is also known as the socio-legal research, non-doctrinal research. And these broad categories of the research, legal research particularly, the doctrinal legal research and the non-doctrinal legal research, obviously you see these are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes there are overlapping between these two also, because if you are going for the non-doctrinal research, doesn't mean that you will not adopt the method of the doctrinal research. That is always to be there. So it's not mutually exclusive. And every research begins with a question or a problem of some sort, whether what has to be done in the doctrinal method or that has to be done in the empirical method. So the aim of the research is to know something more about something, or to discover the answers to the meaningful questions through the application of the scientific procedures or scientific methods. That's why it is also said that research is to be done in a scientific method. So research is an addition to the knowledge. So whatever has been done earlier, you have to research that again and fill the gaps of what has not been done earlier. So when we talk about the legal research is also not an exception to the general concept of research. And this is also similar to that of the other researches. However, undertaking and executing legal research in a systematic way, systematic inquiry is also required, which is very, very complex in nature. And broadly, we see that to proceed for the legal research, 3 points are very important, and that needs a greater degree of skill also. Specific aptitude is required for a researcher. It's not like that you have get the admission in the research and you will do the research. An aptitude to research is also very important, and for that a greater degree of skill is required. It's not that I'm talking about the persons who are intelligent, they can do, but a person who is laborious can also do that research. The processes are like research planning, research implementation, and presenting of the research findings. So when we talk about the research planning, that requires necessary sub-skills for the collection, legal analysis, legal knowledge, problem identification. All these things are required in the research planning. Then research implementation, it involves the skills which are pertaining to the identification of the problem, for the resolution or identification of the research, relevant research source materials, wherefrom we'll get that material and collect the data. So location of the sources are also very important for the research implementation. And while the third point of this research process, that is the presentation of the research findings, that again requires the skill necessary regarding the identification of the research, that is the need of the persons for whom the research is being done, the selection of the appropriate format for the framework, use of clear and very, very lucid language. That is a very important part of the research, and the use of appropriate language style also. It should be informatory, it should be advisory, it should be recommendatory, depends on the recipient sites that for whom the research is being made or how it has to be done. Because research, legal research is not confined to a PhD scholar. Legal researches are being done by the legislators, by the judges, by the lawyers, by the law teachers, by the students. Every time when I'm talking to you for speaking for 1 hour, I have done research for that purpose also. So research is not something like it is confined to the PhD, your thesis, but research is everywhere. A judge researches for writing the judgment. A lawyer researches for his arguments. A teacher researches for teaching. So every type it is the it is the research. So it is dependent on this presentation of the research finding that it should be informatory, it should be advisory, it should be recommendatory or demanding, depending upon the recipients of that needs of the research. And a combined reading of all these three processes of the legal research, that is research planning, research implementation, and presentation or presenting of the research findings and their components leads to the major processes like any other research which is involved in the legal research also. So when we talk about these three processes, these are then further divided into major stages in the legal research or broad points where we find that how the research is to be done. So first of all, the very important point is that there must be the identification and formulation of the research problem. That is the selection of the problem, the area where the researcher wish to work. What shall be that area where the researcher will have to start his study? So that identification and formulation of research, that is the first stage of every research. And by that identification and formulation of the research problem, you will be successful only when you wish to work on the area in which you find that that is your interested in. So it will be depending upon the selection of a correct research problem and its proper formulation. The research problem must be such that, as I told you, it must create some interest of the researcher in the problem. Because if the problem or identification of that problem is ill identified or it is imperfect, it is a weak selection or weak formulation of the research problem, then the researcher will lose the interest in that one. So the problem must be very good in which the researcher must have the interest to work upon. As the research problem is not suitable to work because of its bad or incorrect identification and formulation. So this may even, you see, lead to the researcher in a number of unanticipated difficulties in the later stages. To the extent that the researcher may sometimes leave that also, that he will not be working on that particular identified problem. So it is important that it should be a goal directed research. Must be aimed that I want to work, this is my interest area and I would like to work on that part only. On that basis, you can select a problem, you can identify a problem, you can formulate a research problem, which is to be a well-defined, a precise problem, or meaningful research can come out from that, because this is the first stage of the research. If the first stage would be good, then you see the entire things will be following in a good manner. So you must be heard about one old hearing about that some wise persons have said that a problem well put is half solved. So the very first stage, that is identification of the problem or the selection of the problem, if you are putting it in a well manner, if you are interested in doing that, then you see that half of your problem will be solved. That is, your half of the research work will be completed by the very first stage, that is the identification of the problem. So identification and formulation of a problem, a research problem, is an easy task. This is a question, and answer is a big no. In most scientific works, the difficulty lies in the framing problems rather than in finding their solutions. Morton, he is a renowned sociologist, he observed that if it is often more difficult to find and to formulate a problem than to solve it. A researcher, therefore, you must go, or you need to constantly remind yourself that you need to put your research problem on such a research question in a very, very precise way, and to phrase it in such a way that it becomes viable and allows the discovery of the new knowledge. So before formulating a research problem, it is necessary for the researcher in sequence to identify an area of his general interest. Now, for example, you want to work in public law. Then the second point of that sequence would be an area or subject matter of the special interest from the area of the general interest. As I told you, general interest is public law. Then special interest or the subject matter is that from public law, you want to work in the constitutional law. Now, and from that sequence of the constitutional law, again, then it comes that the aspect from the subject matter of your special interest, then you would like to inquire into what? You would like to inquire into the fundamental rights. Okay. And from that fundamental right, you specifically want to work, for example, on right to health or right to education or right to information. So you have to decide from the big problem, that is your general interest is public law, your special interest is in constitutional law, the subject matter would be fundamental right, and from that subject matter you want to work on a particular area, that is right to information, right to education, right to health, right to privacy, or any of the right. That is part of the fundamental right. So this is what you have to do for the choosing or selecting your identifying the general interest. But this is not enough to formulate a research problem. You need to select a fundamental right that as I told you. And for that, you have to do a lot of reading to identify for further inquiry. Because you say that I want to work on right to privacy. So it is not enough. You have to read more and more on that to know and to inquire as to what is the privacy, where from it has come, what is the origin, what is the problem, is there any problem or not. So all these things would be there. So it needs to put in such a way that it signifies the focus of inquiry as well as the direction also. For example, during pandemic, one want to do the research on right to health during pandemic. So you need to read the health issues as well as the pandemic also. And with that, you can find out the problem, you can identify the problem, you can select and formulate the problem. So this is the first stage to formulate the research problem or a research plan, and it considered the preliminary questions, that legal questions that you need to answer, the parties and the relationship between the parties, the area of law, the jurisdiction, because if you are talking about the right to health in pandemic, so you are talking about the pandemic as a whole, that is the world, or you are talking about the country, you are talking about a state, you are talking about the particular area or particular region. So all these things you have to decide at the stage while formulating your research problem, because this would be the first stage in which you have to work upon for your research problem. So the thing is that this will help you to do the further research, and you have to see more and more relevant facts, legal terms for your research, and generate the terms before you begin the legal research. And this will also help you to navigate the indexes and tables of content. When you go through the reading the material or surveying the material, then you can search from the keywords. And this will create both natural language and in terms of the connectors search terms also, in which you can find everything. So even if you are not able to answer every preliminary questions at this stage, there is no problem at all. It happens. And the part of the research process in identifying known and unknown information, that is important. And what you can do, you do it and then move for further research. So after that formulation of the research problem, the next stage is the review of literature. So once the problem is formulated, now you need to undertake an extensive survey of the literature, which is connected with the research problem, which is related to or having bearing on your research problem as such. This is the process whereby you locate, you select the references that are relevant for the inquiry. And at this stage, it is important to carefully trace the standard books, relevant books, reference books, dealing with or having the bearing of that research problem. Now you have to go through the legal periodicals for that purpose to locate the problem where you are to work. The authoritative comments made on the subjects by the authorities. Then besides legal periodicals, you have to go for the case reports, conference, symposium, seminar proceedings, if any are there, government or the committee reports, law commission reports, and the general web pages also, because you know that the latest emerging perspectives and illustrative examples you can find there also. So you have also to take the special care to locate the earlier studies on the problem and to have a quick reading thereof. That is the existing material for the literature review. However, you see that in recent past, the literature review process has changed dramatically with the access of the computers and especially this www page, World Wide Web. Though we may rely upon almost completely on the web and search engines, let us remind ourselves of two caveats or two things which we need to work, that searching this www is by itself insufficient for literature review. You need to go through the good treatise, you need to go through the good books, legal periodicals, and reports and commentaries and all these commission reports. www search is not enough for your literature review. It is insufficient for all the matters. Then besides that, there is another problem of the www search, that is of the authenticity of the information. That is always a very broad question and big question. So it is evident that the information put on the website is presented inaccurately. You are not aware that whether that is the accurate information or not. So authenticity is also one of the great problem. And without authentic literature, you cannot proceed for your research work, because if the literature is not authentic, the research would also not be authentic. So literature review makes the researcher conversant with the materials which are available on his problem, different aspects, different dimensions of that problem, what is the theoretical basis of the problem, or what are the relevant theories in that field on which he has to work. So this review of literature that helps the researcher to know and to have the first information and knowledge about the present area which has been explored, or which the area which is unexplored, the area which has already been searched, and the area which needs the further search or further research. So this is how the literature review is a very important stage for the purpose of a legal research. And you see the literature review enables also the researcher to know that the kind of the data which has been used and the methods that have been used to obtain that data, and the difficulties also which have been faced by the earlier researchers in collecting and analyzing the data, that is the plus point or the positive point for the present researcher, because these are the things which he will find while doing the review of the literature. So basically, you see that the main purpose of the researcher is to just to reveal what has been done and written on the topic in the past, and to map with their limitations the research techniques used in the work, because at this stage you will also decide that you will be going through for the empirical study or going for the doctrinal study. So the mapping of that limitation with the existing literature, you can decide at that point of time. So to know the kind of the material or the data which has been used and their sources, and to appreciate the adequacy also, whether the data which you find that is adequate or inadequate. The research which have been done earlier were adequate or inadequate. So this is all you will be doing through the literature review, because this is the main purpose of the literature review. you know the central arguments which have been advanced, and the concepts which have been revealed earlier and discussed earlier. So all these things you know. Now this is your time to work on the area which has been left out. And further, you see that in the light of the earlier literature or the findings or the studies, the problems which have been encountered by the earlier, now with precise knowledge of that literature review, you can put your problem in a specific manner, and you can devise appropriate research techniques for your work which can run smoothly, and you can go for the smooth operation of your inquiry. So this is the purpose of the literature review. Then in that literature review, you can consult the secondary sources depending on the familiarity with the particular area of the law. You will be consulting different types of the secondary sources. If you are unfamiliar with an area of the law, then consult the general secondary sources like legal encyclopedias, law reports, law journals. If you are familiar with the area of law, then consult the subject specific secondary sources like books focused on that area. As I told you that you are to work on the constitution. Go for the constitution books written by Sirbai, written by Kashyap or some other authentic authorities on the constitution. So you need not to go for the encyclopedia, because you are familiar with the second source resources of that literature review. Then subject specific law journals you can go for. For example, if you want to work in the tribunals working, go for the tribunal cases, administrative tribunal cases. If you want to work for the migrant laborers or the labor law, go for the labor law cases, domestic and matrimonial cases. So there are specific law journals also you can go if you are familiar with the area in which you want to work. So as you develop your knowledge of a particular area, subject specific secondary sources become more and more useful. And after doing this literature survey, then you move further for this secondary sources to the primary sources. You must also have to consult the primary sources in the literature review. And the secondary sources you consulted earlier will lead you to the primary sources by references and footnotes. So make it a habit that when you read the body content of any literature, just go through the footnoting, the references also, because that would lead to you to the primary source, where from that particular authority has taken or recognized that you will find in the footnote. So once you find the relevant primary sources, those primary sources should lead you to the relevant area. And the cases that will lead to you to the authorities, they rely upon the statutes, the regulations, the other cases also, because when you read a case law, for example, you are reading a case of Navtej Singh Johar, or for that matter, you are reading a case of Maneka Gandhi, then you will find the reference in that particular case, A.K. Gopal and Khadak Singh and so many others. So that the primary source would lead you to the other sources which are of primary nature. And for that, you need to expand and update the primary law. Expand your research means that by looking at the cases that a case you have found sides or that side to that case, by exploring all the relevant head notes in the cases which you have already found, or to find other cases that side to the other case laws in that head notes, or by going through the topics or the key numbers. That is how you can expand your research. That is the keyword. For example, somewhere it is written privacy, somewhere it is written the ratio decidendi, somewhere it is written somewhat else. Then you can go through that keywords to some other additional cases also. And that is how you can expand your research. The second point that is very important for a legal researcher is that we update your research, because as initially I told you, the legal research is just to give you the area where the things are not properly being applied and implemented, or law being dynamic, it has to run with the society. Updation is very important. So to make sure that the cases, statutes, regulations you plan to use in your arguments, in your research work, those have not been overruled otherwise, or those have not been used or treated negatively. Very recently, I had the opportunity to give the PhD thesis evaluation report on two theses. One is on the disabled rights, other was on the senior citizens. So what I found that in 2021, the thesis on disabled rights were talking about only and only of 1995 PW Act, Persons with Disability Act, and not 2016 RPW Act, Rights of the Persons with Disability Act. So updation of the research is very important. You update your research literature review. If you are working in 2021, whatever is happened in 1916, that you have to see whether it is still in existence or it has been overruled, it is not there in the existence. This is very important to expand your research and update your research, that you can do through the literature review, and then to determine whether there is more recent case laws that discusses the same issues or not. If you will say that A.K. Gopalan is the authority, then what about the Maneka Gandhi? You have to see as to what is happening in today's scenario. Then after this literature review, another stage which is there, that is known as the formulation of the hypothesis. This formulation of hypothesis is not important for all the legal research. It is important where it is feasible. So after that extensive literature review, you need to work on the hypothesis and statement of the problem, that is depending upon the research goals and the nature of the inquiry which is involved, that may take from the earlier mere statement or proposition, which is indicating the possible relationship between two or more variables or concepts, and the validity of which is unknown in the beginning. So such a proposition is known as the hypothesis. Hypothesis is just merely a tentative assumption made in order to draw the test, it's a logical or empirical consequences. So it is a tentative and testable statement. A statement to be a hypothesis, it must be capable of being tested, whether the hypothesis is proved to be correct or incorrect. It has to be tested. So if its validity cannot be put to the empirical confirmation, that is a very attractive or interesting proposition may cease to be a hypothesis. So the manner in which a hypothesis is formulated is very important, as it gives the significant clues about the kind of the data required, the type of the methods to be used for collecting the data, and the methods of the analysis which is to be used. It also guides the researcher by delimiting the area of research and keeps him on the right track throughout his investigation. Hypothesis is very important for that purpose, because those propositions the researcher has to work upon during his research. It also, we can say, sharpens his thinking and focuses his attention to be more important facets of the problem which he is working upon. So hypothesis to be worked upon needs to be very, very precise and specific. It should be conceptually clear also. It must have the empirical references. So it is very, very important to know that the hypothesis is not required in all types of the legal research. Researcher, for example, indulge in the exploratory or descriptive legal research is not required to formulate the hypothesis. The statement of the problem in the form of hypothesis that invariably is required in the socio-legal research or empirical legal research, wherein the researcher, if interested in finding the link between the legal fact and the social act, or is interested in assessing the impact of law, then this hypothesis is required. And research questions and hypotheses are the tools used in similar ways for different research methods. And both you see hypothesis and research questions, because sometimes there is a question in the minds of the researcher, what is research question and what is hypothesis, whether hypothesis is required for all the legal researches or not. So as I told you, it is not required for all the legal research, socio-legal research, or the impact of the law. When you need to see the legal impact and the social act, then it is required that the hypothesis is to be there. And research questions are written for the purpose of understanding before the research begins, and are used to help to guide the researcher. So hypotheses are used in the deductive research, where researchers use logic and scientific findings to either prove or disprove the assumptions. While research questions are part of the heuristic research methods and are also used in many fields, including literature, sociology, and other humanities fields. But the structure of the hypothesis and research questions are different, because research questions are always written in the question form, hypotheses are always the statement. For example, if I say that a research question would ask that, are the law graduates motivated to become judicial officer because they perceive this a good and respectful job? So my question, research question started from the, are the law graduates motivated? So this is a question, legal question, research question. But the hypothesis would not be this. Hypothesis would be a statement only. And that would say law graduates are motivated to become the judicial officers because they perceive this as a good and respectful job. So now this hypothesis need to be proved, whether the law graduates are really motivated for the judicial officers positions because that is good and respectful job. And when writing the conclusion, the research conducted using a hypothesis, the researcher will write whether the hypothesis was correct or incorrect, followed by the explanation also for the result of that research. The researcher using only a research question will write the answer to the question, so followed by the findings on that. So there is a difference. So in mostly you see social legal research, it is required that it should be based on some hypothesis. On that the researcher has to work. We should be conceptually clear, we should be specific, we should be empirically testable, and which is related to the available techniques which are to be followed there. Then after that formulation of this hypothesis, the next stage is that is formulation of the problem, then the literature review, and then hypothesis. Next stage is the research design. And research design, you see, the researcher has to work out a design for the study. As you are aware that while constructing a house, it is important that where is to be the land, how is to be the blueprint of that, the design, the map of the land, the where shall be the windows, where shall be the doors, who will be the contractor, how it has to be made. So that is a planning type thing of that you do with your construction of the house. Similar is with this research design. And the research design is the conceptual structure within which the research is conducted. It is something like a logical, systematic planning of the research. And you see, this term research design refers to the entire process of planning and carrying out the research study. So the process of visualization of the entire process, conducting the empirical research before its starting point, before its commencement, that is something like a blueprint of the proposed research work. So this blueprint of the research is always tentative, as the researcher may not be able to foresee all the contingencies before the start of his investigation. So he is allowed to meet with the contingency when he encounters that those are coming in between the research journey, or when he is going on his work. So research design that helps the researcher to identify in advance the kind of the data he requires. That is the means to collect them, the methods to be used for the analysis and the interpretation of the data, the presentation of the findings with more and more accuracy. So research design, you see, it helps him to minimize the uncertainties, the confusions, or some practical hazards which are associated with the research problem, and it helps in enhancing the efficiency also and for the findings of the researcher. Then for that, you see some basic tools for data collection are also important. So after that, you see that how this data is to be collected, for that making the blueprint of the research for the research design. So it is important that he has to form a wide range of method of the data collection, ranging from the interviews, the observations, documents analysis, questionnaire methods. He has to opt for most appropriate methods for collecting the data. However, it is not always easy to take the right decision at the beginning point, and it changes with the process of the research also. It's a very crucial decision. It is having very very far-reaching consequences on the outcome of the research also. So the researcher has to be very, very, use his intelligentsia while making the provisions for the using of the data collection. And the research methods which he chooses will ultimately determine the quality and the propriety of the data. And that would be resulting into the final outcome of his research also. So in a way, the selected method of data collection that determines the fate of his research. So it is important that the data can be primary, it can be secondary, the data collected by the researcher by using the primary source and the secondary sources that are, as I told you, would be found from the authorities. The sources, that is primary source or the secondary source or the data, primary data or the secondary source data, the researcher has to select the appropriate method. So as I told you, the basic tools for the data collection is the interview schedule, questionnaire, structure questionnaire, uninstructed, non-structure questionnaire. Then the participants' observations may be there, non-participant observations may be there. Then in present scenario, online surveys may be there. Through Google Forms, the questionnaires can be given to the targets or to the sample. So there are various tools for the data collection. Now, after collecting the data, the another stage of the research is the analysis and interpretation of that data. Because when you have taken or combined all that, collected all that data, then what do you have to do with that data? And for that, with that data, you see that after the data have been collected, the researcher needs to turn that data into the analysis form. And that data in any form, whether it's a raw data or it's a neutral data, whatever data is there, you need not to play with that data. You need not to do something which is not there in the data. You have to be very, very honest with your data. Their direction and the trend, which is generally highlighted and reflected with the help of the analysis and interpretation of the data, you find that that would give you the correct result. If you see that the hypothesis is different, the data is coming different, now you are dishonestly manufacturing the data, that is not a good research and also against the ethical points of the research. So analysis and interpretation of data is very important, and you have to be very, very honest with the data analysis. Now, analysis is not complete without the interpretation, and interpretation cannot proceed without the analysis. They are interdependent. Analysis of the data involves a number of closely related operations, such as classification or categorization, coding, and tabulation. That is the sample size which you have chosen in that the educated, uneducated, literate, illiterate, age-wise, male, female. So there are various classifications and categorization wherefrom you can analyze the data. Then classification or categorization of data in the process of arranging the data in groups or classes according to their resemblance or affinity. That is also very important for coming to a correct interpretation of that data. The researcher has to classify his data into the required categories, as I told you. The categorization has to be based on the problems under the study that you have formulated the hypothesis. As I told you, the young law students choose to go for the judicial officer's appointment. Then you have to categorize that, whether it's the LLB pass students, LLM pass students, to whom you would in one category or the other category who are going to that. And this is because of the hypothesis formulation that you can categorize your data also. And the category, it must be very exhaustive and suitable for classifying all the responses. They must be distinct, they must be separate and mutually exclusive categorization. Then coding is also very important, which involves the assigning of the symbols or numerical to each of the category of responses. So these are the things which are there. And now with this SPSS method or software, the data is all very easily analyzed and interpreted in the tabulated form. That is one of the important things that has come with the researches. So in that way, we see that it is something like a sort of arrangement of the data through this tabulation in the requisite rows and columns, how it has to be done. That is now being done through the electronic method. That is, your computer can also do this tabulation, etc. So in that way, the researchers' hard work is now minimized with this electronic system. Then for interpretation of that categorized, classified and tabulated data is very important, and it is considered to be the basic component of the research. It refers to the task of drawing inferences from the collective data. The inferences may be deductive or inductive, while you see the form that is the deductive involves the inferences from generally abstract propositions to the particular ones, and the second one, that is the inductive, that is particular positions to the general propositions. So in that way, you see the researcher through this data interpretation tries to find and understand the abstract principles that works in his finding. And this process of interpretation may quite often bring new questions that may lead you further researches also. You don't stop here at this point of time that you have collected the data, you are analyzing and interpreting the data. So at the time of interpretation of data, you may find that your hypothesis is not being fulfilled or being not answered by the collected data. Again, you have to proceed for the initial stage, that is from the review and collection of the data. That is the beauty of the interpretation of data that can bring you to the final research output. And the final point or the final stage of that research is the writing of the research report. This is the last phase of the research in writing of the research report. It's a major component of the research. Research will not be complete without a report written by the researcher. Though you see that through this research report, the researcher communicates and tells what he did during 3, 4, 5 years and what are his findings. It is just like an account or a journey of the researcher, account of the journey of the researcher for his legal research or research work. However, it is not a complete description of what he has done during his research. There are so many other things in between which happens with the researcher during the social legal studies, during the questionnaires, during the observations, during interviews, what he has experienced that time. Those experiences are not the part of the report, but what findings are there on that topic, that is the part of the research writing of this report. So it contains only an account of the statement of the problem investigated and the procedure adopted to reach to that findings. and it contains the significant facts that are necessary to appreciate and understanding the generalization which has been drawn by the researcher. So, researcher through his research report, he shares the research problem which has been investigated, the methods used for the collection of the data, their analysis and interpretation, and the results of the findings of the study. So the purpose of the research report is just to convey the interested persons the whole research or result of the inquiry in the sufficient details. Now, contents and styles of the report would be depending upon the kinds of the audience, the kinds of the work for which it has been done. As I told you that legal research is not confined to the PhD scholars. It may be for the PhD, it may be for the dissertation, it may be a research paper, it may be a judgment, it may be a law. So audience is different. The method of writing report would also be different. Therefore, there cannot be any hard and fast rules pertaining to the contents and the format of the research report. However, for PhD, we find that research reports must be written in the manner that can be understood in that context or the methodology, which makes it easy. Research report generally contains in the information about the problem undertaken, the investigation, methodology adopted, and analysis of that data. So you see that a proper format of the legal research report has three major parts. The preliminary, first is the preliminary pages, the second is the main text, and the third is the end matter. The first part of that preliminary pages includes the legal researcher has to put the acknowledgement, preface, table of contents, table of cases, table of statutes, abbreviations, list of tables, and annexes which have been used for the details of that. That should be the first part of the research report. Then in the second part, which is the main text of the research report, the researcher has to write the chapters with appropriate captions starting from the introduction to the conclusion and suggestion. So whatever chapters are there in between, the researcher has to put that in the report with detailed study. That is the second and the main text. And the third and the end text of end matter of the research report, that is you see the that is containing of some headings and subheadings, that is with the proper documentation. That is also very important in that part. When you write the chapters, introduction, then after that second chapter, third chapter. So in each chapter, you have to have necessary headings and subheadings with proper documentation in the forms of the footnotings. Footnoting styles are different. MLA is there, APA is there, ILA is there, OSPOLO is there, Chicago, Blue Book. So there are many more styles of footnoting. And formatting is also very important. That need to be same and standard formatting for the entire main text work, because that is the soul of the entire research. And chapters would be written in concise and very, very simple and lucid language. And the final or the end matter or the third part of your research would include the bibliography, the different texts like the statutory provisions or which you have referred in the main text, the interviews or the questionnaires which have been used by you, you can use that also as in the appendixes, and you have to use the other annexes and the index. That is the last part. So bibliography is very important, references are very important, footnotings are very important for the writing of the report of the legal research. So this is how these are the stages where from you see that the originality and clarity of are very important, and these are the two vital components of the research report. It should be original, it should be clear. It is the ultimate test of your analytical ability and communication of the skills as to how you can analyze the things and communicate to the others for whom the research report has been made. It is an exercise which involves the organization of your ideas. So reporting the research that requires the skills somewhere you see some type different from those needed in the earlier phases of the research, the writing is very, very important. So you need to be very, very careful while analyzing and writing the report. There are some tips which may be helpful to reach to your final outcome of the research. You can follow those tips and focus on those tips. That is, you have to identify the gaps in your writings and analysis by reviewing each sentence, paragraph, argument, and ask yourself that do I need to cite the primary authority here? If the answer is coming yes, return to the research. If the answer is coming to no, move forward. So your argument are very important while writing, that you are using the primary authority here or the secondary authority in that way. So you have to take this tip very importantly. Then second tip is that if you have too much information while doing the literature, you have got so many important information, but at the time of writing of the report, now you are confused where to start with, how to start with, what to do. Then return to your original legal question or the problem which you have identified, and be more specific in identifying the legal issues. As I told you that public law, constitution, fundamental rights, right to health. Now you have to start with right to health instead of the constitution. For example, you have to start with the strict liability in the law of torts instead of the law of torts as a whole. So if you are having too much information, then you can curtail this by reverting back or returning to your original, this research work. Then if you have not got enough information, then you have to broaden the types of the sources which you have used, multiple types of the secondary sources, the keywords, the head notes, everything, the footnotings you have to see, and by that you can have enough information for your research work. Then there is one question which is important for the researchers, that where to stop and when to stop researching. Because I'm reminded one of my students, she was working on the cyber crime in 2007, and she had to submit her research PhD thesis. But every time when I asked what is the work, she said that, ma'am, the material is coming every day, so where to stop, how to stop. So you have to fix a cutoff date, a cutoff line. Though the important things should not be missed out, but you have to see that laws, legal research is always a research whereby we have so many judgments daily, we have the various laws which are coming daily. So somewhere we have to put a cutoff date, and then we have to start working on that material which you are having, and you have to stop researching on that. But before the final submission, you must see that anything which is important for your research work has come. You have to make assure yourself that that should be the part of your research. So you have to stop somewhere, and you have not to continue with finding the material for your researching. Then another tip is that keep your synopsis always with you during the literature review. So writing or searching the material. If at any point of time that comes to your mind that this could be a good suggestion for your research, then pen down it at that same time. Don't try to construct a good sentence, just catch what you can write, so that when you start writing a research report, then that suggestion you can see, and then you will find that those suggestions which you have mentioned earlier, they may have missed in 3-4 years of your work, and that would be very good suggestions for your research work. And finally, be ethical in your research, recognize the work of others, and respect the privacy. So with these major stages, you can work properly, and formulation of the research problem is the very essence of your research. So give more and more time for that. With these words, I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to bring my thoughts in front of those researchers who can work or who are working in the legal field. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With your permission, we would like to take the questions of the participants.
Sure.
We have about 14 questions. So With your permission, I would like to take at least few
Sure.
questions.
Sure.
Ma'am, there is a question from Ms. Shukrasana, and she asked, which is the better way to formulate a proposal? Getting into the core subject or approaching a multidisciplinary aspect?
Very simply, you can see that, as I told you, this is the interest of the researcher, number one. That if the researcher has interest in the particular area, whether it's a subject specific or multidisciplinary, it makes no difference. Research is a research. So it is your interest that you want to work on that area. And second thing is also, which a researcher must keep in mind, is that whether you will find sufficient material on the area on which you want to work. So these two things are important for a researcher in formulating a research problem. It's not like that you want to work in a multidisciplinary area or in a single discipline like law is.
Okay, ma'am. There is another question I heard that while merging the two types of research methodology, that is doctrinal and non-doctrinal, how we should balance the both?
Basically, it depends on the very first area, that is the problem of the research on which you are working. So it will decide, as I told you, when you are collecting the data, when you are using the basic tools, at that time it decides that what shall be the method of your research, doctrinal, non-doctrinal. As I told you, non-doctrinal research cannot be done alone without having the part of the doctrinal research. You have to introduce the topic. You have to bring something in which is in existence for supporting your non-doctrinal research. So the balancing is to be decided only and only on the basis of the area on which you are working. It cannot be said that the 50% should be non-doctrinal and 50% should be doctrinal. It is not like that. It depends on the area on which you are working.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for that. There is another question which is more related to two, three people have asked, relating to the search online of, as you said, that the search on www is not sufficient or is insufficient.
Yes.
So few people like Khushbu and Ms. Diksha have asked the question in relation to that. And they said, then how should we search online? And they also said that if we go and download the relevant articles to Google, then will it be okay to consult it for literature review?
It is okay to, no. The point is that the Google search engine that is free for all, sometimes you see that the material which is available on the search engines which are free, those are not authentic. This is one thing. There are certain paid sites, there are certain literature which are available on the websites which are paid, and where you can enter through the password, you can have that literature from the www also. It's not that all the www or World Wide Web is always giving you the unauthentic or the wrong material. No, it's not like that. But the open access, we cannot rely on that for the legal research. This is my point. You can go for the JSTOR journals, you can go for the ResearchGate, you can go for the good sites for that. It's like that. Otherwise, only having the open access to the Google engine and then you are working on that, you also just make a similarity and dissimilarity test between the two articles which are available on the Google free. You'll find that even the years are not mentioned same. Some would say that the Constitution of India is 1949, others would say Constitution of India 1950. So which material you would say is correct? And for that, heuristic research is very important, which is based on your mental condition. You know the things.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. I think you have already taken one more question that was by Rita Judaina. She asked, you have already answered in your this question, as she asked that can you suggest the sources of one can refer to for literature review? You have already suggested right now, gesture and such kind of mediums. There is another question by Shipit Kumar Rai, and he asked, how should we formulate good literature review?
This is again the similar or repetitive question that literature review. Basically, as I told you, that the area where from you have to start is the secondary sources and primary sources are very important. From both these sources, you can find the literature and then you have to review that literature. The primary sources and the secondary sources of the review, you must be aware as to what are the primary sources, what are the secondary sources in legal terms. The judgments, the acts, the statutes, the primary sources, the books, the authorities, the treatise, these are the secondary sources. So in that way, you can see that if a book you are going through, and in that book, as I told you, you must not leave the footnotings and referencing of any of the item which you are reading. So in that, you will find that if one of the authority is being cited by maximum writers, then just go to that authority itself and then find out as to what is written over there. So you will have a very good collection of the literature and then you can review from that literature. It's a primary as well as the secondary both.
Okay. Now, Mr. Arvind Upadhyay is also asking one question. And what are the challenges to select the problems with respect to public international law area?
It's a very specific question. You see that when we are talking about the public international law, so one thing that is related to is that socio-legal studies in that way, non-empirical, non-doctrinal or empirical studies sometimes becomes very difficult in that way. For example, if I'm going to do a comparative study of ombudsmanic situation or the parliamentary commissioner in India and England, then how I can go for the socio-legal research for that purpose. This is important, and for that doctrinal study one can go. This is one of the area where non-doctrinal research is not as important as the doctrinal research is, because you have to base your things on the surveys, etc., or on the observation methods. That is not the entire crux of the empirical study. So public international law is a good subject. You can go for that. But for that, you have to be very, very careful while choosing the methods through which you have to research.
Okay, thank you. There is one more question by Priyanka Bada Adhikarina, and she asked in relation to pandemic that how a researcher can go for literature review without visiting library during this pandemic. And the same question has been asked by one or two more participants.
Well, it's a very correct thing that we are in lockdown, the pandemic is going on, everything is online, we are meeting online. Because of that, we are not meeting offline. So, one thing is important here is that the pandemic laws, you can go to the websites of the authorities, for example, Government of India, for getting the material. Government of India, Law Commission, Supreme Court websites, you can have borrow directly from those websites the material, and then you can go for research. You can go for the United Nations website, UNO website, WHO websites for getting the material from there also.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, there is Mr. Dhanya Vinod, and he's asking, what is the difference between research design for doctrinal and non-doctrinal research?
Research design is the part of both types of the research methods. Doctrinal and non-doctrinal are only the methodologies, methods through which you are going to research. However, the stages remain the same. And research design is one of the major stage, as I told you. मकान बनाने से पहले जमीन ढूंढना, आर्किटेक्ट को ढूंढना, सामान लाना, इकट्ठा करना, research design is something like that. So this is required in both, either it's a doctrinal or it's a non-doctrinal research.
Okay, ma'am. If you permit, there's one or two more questions.
Why not?
Ma'am, Mr. Kshitij Kumar Rai has asked how research design is different from research plan.
Both are almost similar.
All right, ma'am. And one student, Kushbu, she is also asking what is the difference between research proposal and synopsis, and what should we include in research proposal, and what to be included in synopsis.
Basically, proposal and synopsis are similar. If you are proposing or making a research proposal, in that you have to bring the statement of problem that I told you, the formulation of that problem. You have to put that down. Then the methods of research which you are going to have, the existing material, the literature review, the references which you are taking, the utility of your research, the objectivity of your research, hypothesis of your research, and at the same time the tentative chapterization which you are going to work on that research. If it's going to be the empirical research, then you have to put the area also and what shall be the size of your sample, and that is all the part of your research proposal and synopsis.
Last question, please. Mr. Indra Kumar Singh is asking, what are the issues or concern in conducting observational research?
It depends that what type of the research you are going to do. If it's going, for example, you are going to work on the rights of the persons who are HIV infected persons, then observation you can have that. Sometimes you may not be able to get the proper answers to your questions. If it is going to be on the LGBT rights, if it is going on something like that, where we see that the persons, they are not open up with the others to tell them as to what is happening or what is not. In that, observation method is important, but you have to be very, very careful in having that observational records with you for using in your research writing of the report with the interpretation of that data. Because sometimes what you can see, that is always not true. So you have to go into the details as to what you have observed. You have to, I mean, certify and verify that with the some materials or the documents also, whether it is like that or not. So in that observation method, you can go for that.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. One more person has dropped the question right now relating to best book for research methodology. They wanted to have your view.
There are many books. Every book is a masterpiece, depends who reads and how it is read. I cannot say that this is the book which will be a very good book for you, because every writer, every author has done a great labor in putting those things in the book form. So every book is a masterpiece. It depends who reads and how it is read. And for that, you have to read more and more literature, more and more books on that. And that book is a good book which conveys all the informations which you require at a particular time.